From Central Indiana's #1 news source, this is FOX59 Tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us here on FOX59 Tonight. I'm Cameron Riddle. Thank you for downloading our new smart TV app on your Roku, Fire TV, or Apple TV. And if you're watching us online on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss any of the conversations that we have every weeknight at 8 o'clock. We talk about everything from what's happening at the White House to your house, and happening at your house here for depending on where you live already, if not next week, if not, then the week after that. A school bus will be showing up to pick up the kids to get started for the new school year. Some of the districts here in Central Indiana literally already started this week. There's technically 2 weeks left in July, and they're already back in school. For others, we get another week or two, but this is go time where everybody has either already started or they are planning. And that's everybody from the schools, but also into the transportation department, because can't get to school without the transportation department. And so today we'll talk about some school bus back to school safety, some awareness. We'll talk about new data that shows just how many people get past a school bus in a single day across Indiana and across the nation. But we'll also explain to you why school buses are the safest vehicle, safest mode of transportation for your kids to get to and from school and to their athletics, because of all the safety work that surrounds school bus transportation. To tell us more about that, in the studio with us tonight is Gary Clevenger. He is the transportation director at Carmel Clay Schools, also a board member for the School Transportation Association of Indiana, and Nathaniel Hampton, whose name is the only one that's not capitalized right now, and it's bothering me. So I'm going to fix that at some point. But he is a senior trooper with the Indiana State Police, and he is among the troopers who are responsible for inspecting every single one of the school buses that are on the road here in Indiana. So I've got some great experts to break down this information. They also serve with me as part of the Indiana School Transportation Association of Indiana, where we literally talk about these things all day, sometimes for days at a time, to keep everybody safe. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yep, thank you.
Well, I guess let's start with this new. Let's start with the new data that just came out that shows a lot of people do not know what the flashing red lights and, in some cases, flashing stop arm. They don't seem to know what that means, because they continue to pass buses by the thousands. What's the new data, and tell us how alarming it is, Gary.
Well, we just actually got the state data released in the last couple days, and it looks like for the 24-25 school year, so we always do a single date where all school districts in the state participate in an effort to capture this data. So for the single day in April of this past school year in 25, we had 1,463 stop arm violations in that single day.
Wow.
So it's significant. I believe we had 176 school districts that were reporting this year. So I mean, it's a significant problem. Like you said, it's a red stop sign. The lights are flashing. You got the 8-way lights, the red lights flashing on the school bus as well. We try to educate the public on what that is, what the expectation is. But it just seems to be a continuous problem, and the added concern here is, rather than it just being like a stop sign at an intersection where two cars might collide with one another or could have an accident. In this particular case, the reason our stop arm is out on a school bus is because we are loading or unloading children.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concern at that point is, if a car is not stopping and we have a student who is crossing to get on our school bus, that student is crossing with the assumption that it's safe to do so. And so a lot of training goes into our drivers really keeping an eye out, checking their mirrors, watching cars very carefully, taking a very defensive approach, and in some cases just assuming that a car may not stop. And so making sure we're training our kiddos and just training our kiddos to wait for a signal before they cross, and then making sure that our driver is looking and determining that the situation's safe before allowing them to do so.
I've had for those of you who watch the show, I drive a school bus as well. And the excuses that people give for why they run a school bus stop arm. I had a lady one year that I was stopped on a 2-lane road, so not a busy street. We're in a residential neighborhood, but I had kids crossing and we were stopped. She was stopped behind me. So as I stop arms out, I'm letting the kids start to cross the road because everything is clear. I've checked, it's clear. I can see her. She's just sitting behind me. And all of a sudden she just floors it around the bus. And those kids are crossing the street. She actually ended up in between. One kid made it across, the other kid was still in front of the bus. And I remember blowing on the horn and screaming at the top of my lungs at her because another step this way or that way, she absolutely would have killed one of those kids. And so I called it in on the radio, and we have school police where I was driving in Perry Township, and I was able to get her license plate because she passed me on the left, but was going in front of me, and they were able to catch up with her. And the police stopped her, gave her a ticket, and I believe her excuse was she just didn't feel like waiting.
Yeah, well, yeah, her actions certainly matched her description of it. But I think people just need to. I would ask the public to just exercise more patience, especially with a school bus. I would like people, instead of seeing a school bus as an obstacle they need to get around in the road, I would love people to see a school bus as the best and safest vehicle that can get your kids, get the future of our of our city, our state, our country to and from school safely. And I think if we all had that mentality, maybe we would be a little more patient and a little more understanding. A school bus is not driving slow in front of you because they want to. Trust me, sometimes we have to tell our drivers to drive a little slower.
Mm-hmm.
But they are doing that, and they do have that traffic control device for a reason. We're trying to stop all traffic so that our kids are safe to cross. It's really should not be a controversial topic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anybody in the world that wants to see kids get hurt. And so I don't know why we continue to have as much of an issue. I think some of it's just paying attention. I know cell phones certainly don't help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes people can go on a little bit of autopilot, but I would just really encourage the public, when you see that bright yellow vehicle, and you see those red lights and you see the flashing strobe lights on the stop arm, just remind yourself that there's a reason we have that out. Just assume, rather than it being something that's an inconvenience to your day,
Mm-hmm.
it's because we're trying to keep kids safe.
We've got some of the data of how many people pass a school bus in a single day, and I'll pull that up in a second, because there's also something that has the reasons why they say they pass school buses. Senior Trooper Nathan Hampton, you're one of the people who, first of all, you guys wear many hats, which you guys do at the Indiana State Police, but in addition to keeping school buses safe, you guys are also helping in that of catching drivers who are passing school buses, and also trying to educate them that not only can you get a fine and a ticket and points on your license, but you can also kill somebody.
Exactly.
What are you guys trying to do this year as school takes off?
Like every year, we're going to be watching those hot spots for activity. The benefit to that data we collected is we can see what school systems may have more of an issue that's been reported. We can take that to help direct our efforts. Like every other agency, every other business, we're a little more short-staffed than we were a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be more proactive and use that info to the best of our ability to use that technology to go and watch the more prone problem areas. So the report that was released showed that I believe all of the top 10 schools were in very urban areas. So we'll probably direct our efforts that way to watch for those very specific violations.
I'm just coming back from Boston. I was at the National School Bus Transportation Association conference, and one of the sessions talked about this very topic and what they are trying to do to accomplish more awareness so people understand what these consequences are. But I'm reading this off on my phone because I took a picture of the slide. And this was from 2024, It was a survey of driver knowledge about passing a school bus. And participants were asked for their opinions on the reasons most drivers illegally pass a stopped school bus. The top 4 reasons for violators were 30% didn't care.
Good grief.
25% were in a hurry. 24.3% didn't know the law. And 12% were distracted. So, distraction, that's one thing. Didn't know the law, we can continue to educate, which is what we're doing here. We're in a hurry. I'm not sure what to do about that one. But I guess I'm most troubled by the 30% who just didn't care.
Yep.
At least have an excuse, I guess. But if you're just like, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
The consequences we've seen with the crash that happened in Rochester, not saying that that's what caused that woman to run past the school bus because she thought it was some farm equipment, she says. But in that case, a whole family's life was changed. And so it's like, how could you not care? Because not only did you change that family's life, that the driver's life in that car was also changed to where she couldn't be with her own family for some time because she was prosecuted and she went to jail for that. What do you guys think we can do about any of these things, from not caring to driver education to we're in a hurry, I guess leave earlier, I guess, I don't know. Bus comes at the same time every day. Or those who were distracted.
Yeah, I think the education with the state police, we do a lot of education through enforcement. We see it, we're going to take that appropriate action to address it. And if it takes a ticket to get your attention to not do it, so be it. But with that, there's those other fines and consequences. So it may be a ticket. If you recklessly pass a school bus, it's actually a crime. You could go to jail for up to a year. If you're that new teen driver that has that probationary license, one time passing a stop arm and you lose it till you're 18. So there's a lot of consequences that'll go along with that outside of just that monetary fine.
Have you had the duty yet of going to court to try to enforce a stop arm violation?
Out of all of them I've written, I've yet to go to have one of those contested.
Because most people just pay it and say, okay.
Whatever happens after the ticket's written is between the prosecutor and defendant.
I will say we've been very fortunate in Carmel and in Hamilton County in general to have local prosecutors that are willing to take those citations and pursue trial if the person does contest that ticket, just based on our stop arm video footage that we submit. So we do have cameras on the exterior of many of our buses. Every new year that we order new buses, we order them equipped with these exterior stop arm cameras. And there's not all counties, as I understand it, will admit that as evidence and will issue citations based on it. In certain counties, I know Marion County, for example, having been a transportation director in a Marion County school for years, they will not utilize stop arm video footage to issue citations. An officer would have to physically witness that violation occurring, which is just, there's too many manpower concerns to have an officer at every possible high volume location where there are, stop arm violations to really have any sort of meaningful impact. So for us, I typically will go to every trial that gets contested. One is a show of support for our drivers, and then two, to act as an expert witness if needed for the Hamilton County Prosecutor's Office. But it's interesting to hear the stories. Like you said, we get stories. They come in and they say, "Well, there wasn't a kid crossing there, so I don't know why I had to stop." Mm-hmm. It's like, well, there was a 4-way intersection. You didn't see any cars around. You still have to stop. I don't know that we would really contest that ticket either. But and then sometimes people are unaware. Sometimes people come in and they see, our driver, and then oftentimes we'll have maybe 3 or 4 of our drivers come and sit, in the audience area, and they'll watch just as a show of support for the driver. They'll see that. They'll see us, working with the prosecutor and reviewing the video, and then they'll change their mind. Mm-hmm. And when they go up to address the judge, they'll say, "Nope, I've changed my mind, Your Honor. I'd like to go ahead and pay the fine." So, like I said, people can make mistakes. People can zone out. But we need people to do better, and we need people to pay better attention to it. That Rochester crash is a good example of, unfortunately, sometimes things have to happen that are terrible to get some traction. And what we find in Indiana and nationwide is the immediate aftermath of a tragedy involving a stop arm violation prompts temporary action. So we had a flurry of bills from the legislature. We had, several changes on bus specifications and visibility requirements for buses, reflective tape, things like that, which are all good. But in my opinion, I think you could light the bus up like a Christmas tree, mm-hmm. and you could have a stop arm that comes out and slaps you. And I think we still would have people that would go past it. So, we are implementing more visibility things on our buses. We do have some signs, the school bus sign, at the top of the bus. We've got some backlit signs. I don't know that those necessarily will prevent stop arm violations, but what I do think they will do is allow you to see from far off, and rather than thinking it's farm equipment, or rather than seeing 3 little clearance lights and thinking it's some other type of commercial vehicle like a garbage truck or a semi, that large yellow rectangle, that's a school bus. So I think for us, it's just educating the public when you see these vehicles on the road, even from far off before the stop arm ever comes out. It's a passive form of identifying that's a school bus. And when you see a school bus, I want you to think that's our kids, that's our future on there.
I know we'll have a lot of industry type folks watch this show. And so I was listening to you talk, and I'm thinking about my fleet of buses and your trials and tribulations of Marion County and stop arm violations. Because on one hand, it's like, okay, well, I want to put stop arm cameras on my buses, but then it's like, well, but if nobody's going to prosecute it, what is even the point? And therefore, it feels kind of defeating.
Yeah, I think the analogy I used is it just gives you a prettier picture of something that really irritates you, but nothing's going to happen about. So, yeah, I think really what we would encourage, I would encourage our local prosecutors, our local county prosecutors across the state to really look at statute. I think what we've been able to successfully defend in court is that the Indiana Code offers a rebuttable presumption that the owner of the vehicle was the operator at the time of the stop arm violation. So often what we'll hear is a defense that, well, I wasn't the one driving. Mm-hmm. Well, what that Indiana statute does is it says it's a rebuttable presumption that you own that vehicle, you were driving it. The only way you can rebut that presumption is you can tell us who was driving it, and we'll redirect the ticket to that person. If they don't want to do that, then they can eat the ticket. But I think that there definitely is the documentation in statute. There's certainly the legalese that allows us to pursue this. I would just encourage our local prosecutors and our local school districts in those counties that aren't currently doing it to work with their prosecutor's office, because I do think there's a tremendous amount of value in these cameras. The typical setup you'll have is you'll have 2 cameras that are facing forward. One is kind of zoomed in, might capture like the windshield or the front of the car. In Indiana, we don't have front-mounted license plates, but some states do. The second view is really the critical view, and that's the one we play in court the most, which is a view, a kind of a wider angle view of the lane to next to the school bus on the stop arm side, and also the physical stop arm and where it mounts to your bus. Mm-hmm. So you can physically watch it extend. You can watch and verify visually that the lights were functioning. And then you can watch that vehicle either passing oncoming, or you can watch it passing to the left from, same direction of travel. And then you can pause that image, zoom in, you can get plate information. And then we usually have one rear-facing camera that also will allow us to catch, even in low light conditions, it'll allow us to catch that plate number for oncoming vehicles that passed.
At the bottom of the screen, it says 1,400 stop arm violations were reported by Indiana school bus drivers in one day. That was back in the spring. Could you gentlemen explain what that process looks like and across the nation? Because we also have numbers from the rest of the nation that basically say in a single day, 69,000 people passed a school bus in a single day, as each states kind of do these surveys. How does that work?
Yeah, so the data is collected. Every state picks one day. The date varies depending on the state, but they pick that one day that they're going to ask every school district to provide that data. In Indiana, I believe ours was in April, and we had a fewer schools respond this year than we have in the past. And Gary may talk more about why he thinks that is. But with that, the only silver lining is we're down about 10% from last year. 1,400 is still way more than we should be having, though.
Yeah, I would say, like Trooper Hampton mentioned, it is a bit of a decrease. However, I don't know statistically how significant it is. The other thing that we've talked about as well, I know that among drivers, I think there can be a bit of a fatigue when it comes to stop arm violation tracking and this type of stuff. So, I know for our process, we take it pretty seriously. We, put our drivers' names on every sheet. We distribute them out to the drivers. They're all required to report them back to us, even if they didn't have any results. But, I do wonder as well how many drivers, hey, if I'm driving a bus that doesn't have a camera on it, or, I'm in an area where I really can't afford to take my eyes off the kids that are loading and unloading to write down a plate number or anything like that. So for me, it just feels like a lost cause. Like you mentioned, I feel defeated. So why would I bother to report it if I don't have any proof and it's not going to stop anything? So I think some of that fatigue may have crept into some of the reporting numbers. Because like I said, I've not seen anything locally. And then in my position on our state our state association board, I've not seen anything around the state that would indicate that we've seen any improvements on this.
I'm also wondering, as I was listening to you talk, on 465 now they're putting the speed cameras, but it's kind of the same. It's the same setup. So I wonder if we've asked the prosecutor if they're going to apply that same logic, because it's the exact same thing.
Well, I think it's the thing in legislature. We've had bills proposed every year for probably the last decade. Specifically related to stop arm violation enforcement, increased enforcement, stop arm cameras. Every year they would get they wouldn't make it to the final legislation. But I think what we would really like to see is take the existing laws that we have, even without increased legislation. I'd certainly love to see some at the national or federal level, at the state level. But even with what we have, it's certainly defensible. The question is, does your local prosecutor have an appetite for that? And I understand both sides of it. Some of these counties have a lot more on their plate than stop arm violations, but the minute that one of these turns south and somebody violates a stop arm and it results in a tragedy, it's all of a sudden going to become the number one priority for everybody. So what I would love to have happen is, before we get to another Rochester, or before we get to another situation where a student is struck and injured or killed boarding or unboarding a school bus, I would love for us to take a more proactive approach. We're too reactive. And by the time we're reactive, we've already lost another kiddo.
Yep. Unfortunately, I've had to deal with some of that as well.
Yes, you have.
And so the driver, and on that one, at least part of the reasoning was that she had narcotics in her system. And so, among other reasons, but a stopped bus at a corner, broad daylight. In an intersection, that she came straight through the intersection. Yeah, we watched the video, and I know we reached out to you right when that happened. That was at our conference in 24. Yep. So, yeah,
sometimes, we can ask ourselves why. But like Nathan mentioned, it's at some point, you stop asking why and you just start enforcing. It was very curious to hear how many people said they just didn't care. Because I guarantee they would care if it was one of their family members, one of their loved ones that was put in harm's way because somebody just didn't care, or somebody had some place to be and they couldn't bear to stop at that school bus. So,
yeah. Unfortunately, you would hope that they would care if it was one of their relatives, but when you're going around that bus, you have no idea who's crossing that street. So, but nobody thinks about that. So we're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we're also going to talk about school bus inspection, something that Gary and I and all the transporters we love. But we'll explain to you that, hey, school buses just aren't out there on the road and just driving willy-nilly. Apparently, you can do that in some states. I learned at the conference that I was just at. But we don't have that here. We'll explain to you why that is after this.